First, I want to give a shout out to Jason Tenzer. Jason Tenzer listened to an episode, a couple episodes actually, of us talking about tearing Sports Illustrated for Kids cards out of the magazine and submitting them to PSA. And then we had kind of a funny thing happen on the Sports Card Strategy Show and Tell a couple weeks ago, where our very own Ryan Painter showed us definitely how not to tear Sports Illustrated for Kids cards out of the magazine. So I'm going to do something I typically don't do on the Overflow show, but since Jason asked, I'm going to show you guys how to tear Sports Illustrated for Kids cards out of the magazine. Now, right here, you'll see that this is a Sports Illustrated for Kids magazine where I've already torn the sheet out. And when you tear the sheet, I think the easiest part, and this is the part that Ryan messed up on the Sports Card Strategy Show and Tell, is actually just getting the card sheet out of the magazine. So I'm going to show you. This is pretty easy to do. This right here, this side, is the perforated card sheet that you'll want to essentially get out all in one piece. And you'll want to basically just massage the magazine with this tab right here. So that way you're not touching this card sheet. You can see in this example that I've already torn this particular card sheet out. But what I'm going to do here is show you, if this were all in one piece, that would be ideal. And what you're going to do is just take this tab right here, the Sports Illustrated for Kids logo tab, or sometimes there's an advertisement on it. And you're going to use it to just take the entire sheet out of the magazine by the staples. If you need to kind of wiggle it, massage it a little bit, you could invest in a staple remover. That might be a little bit easier, but you should just be able to tear it out like this, right? Now, once you have the card sheet all intact like this, that would give you the ability to wiggle the perforation. I'm going to use the term wiggle. You want to wiggle the perforation to loosen the perforation, okay? And if you keep the entire sheet together, that's going to give you more room while you're wiggling to not really touch the main card sheet. The idea is at first to not really touch the main card sheet. Now, the other factor here is you have to ask yourself, like, which card are you trying to take out? Because if you're trying to take out, say, the center card here, this happens to be an Austin Eckler card. Then and the cards to the right and the left of it don't really matter. Then you can kind of use the cards to the right and the left of it that don't really matter to do your wiggling, right? And basically what you're trying to do is loosen the perforation enough to just have it like easily spread apart without ever even touching the card. And I'll show you how to do that in a second. But, the Victor Wembanyama card, I believe, was the top middle, and Alyssa Thompson was the top left. So using that example, I wanted to wiggle on this side of this sheet, right? That's connected to the staples, because I didn't want to touch Alyssa's card and I didn't want to touch Wemby's card, but I knew I had to touch one of those two cards to get Wemby out. So basically I had to kind of sacrifice the Alyssa card a little bit, but it still got good grades, because as long as you're not, like, fingerprints on these are okay as long as your clans, as long as your hands are clean and dry, your clans are dry. Then you're good to go. So let's just go ahead and, like, you shouldn't really mess this up. So what Ryan did on the show and tell was, like, he tried to fly through it, and, like, that's not going to work. You need to take your time. I like to take my time cracking slabs. I also like to take my time tearing out cards from SI for Kids. So even in a situation where this is loose, this flap, that's fine. We're just going to focus on the main card sheet. And in this case, let's say we're trying to get the Brianna Jones card out, which happens to be the far left middle. So all we would do in this case is, like, just take the perforation and just fold it. I use the term wiggle. So we're going to wiggle in a second, but first you fold, then wiggle. You want to fold and crease that mother scratcher. Crease the mother scratcher. Fold, crease, and wiggle. That's the terminology we want to use. Fold, crease, and wiggle. And wow, if you're listening to this on Spotify right now and not watching, some great audio, that's for sure. Give it the old fold, crease, and wiggle. Like, honestly, to the point where, see what I'm doing here? Like, now, this perforation could maybe fall off by itself. But we want to try to spread the card and the sheet apart. Now, in this case, if this were still intact, we could do that easier. This flap, but since this flap isn't intact anymore, basically, to just remove the sheet. I mean, it's so loose at this point. See what I'm doing is like with my left hand, I'm just barely touching the card against the table so that there's some resistance. And then I'm just tearing off the sheet. And that's what PSA is going to grade it based on really the centering. The centering's all messed up, so there's nothing I can do about that. Like, it's really off center. It's almost miscut. So this, if I hand in this Aaron Matson card or this Brianna Jones or this Sandy Alcantara card, those are going to be probably graded miscut, and there's nothing you can do with those because, like, SI for Kids miscut the sheet. Now the middle cards: Tage Thompson, Austin Eckler, Caitlin Tui. Which is kind of funny. I actually thought Tui might be related to the Tuis that are in the news for the whole Michael Oher thing. I don't think she is. Although maybe if she is, I should list that for sale. Sipping my coffee. Hold on one sec. All right. So now we're in a situation where all we need to do is determine like which cards are the most valuable cards. So let's pretend that we want every single card to be torn out perfectly. I'm just going to like lightly place. You guys like this really detailed. So I'm going to lightly place my left index finger under the perforation of the Aaron Matson card. And I'm going to lightly bend the sheet as close to the perforation as possible. But if you'll notice, what I'm not concerned about is fingerprints. What I am very concerned about is not bending the card sheet. So Painter, in his example, was bending the shit out of the card sheet. We don't want to do that. We just want to fold, crease, wiggle, and tear. Fold, crease, wiggle, tear. See, now we're in a situation where I'm flipping the card sheet over. I continuously barely run my fingers along the end of the crease. See this? Boom. Flipping it over. Running my fingers across, and then I'm going to wiggle. And as I wiggle, I'm wiggling only the perforation to loosen the perforation. Fold, crease, wiggle, loosen. Fold, crease, wiggle, loosen. We're almost 10 minutes into the show, and we've just said the words fold, crease, wiggle, loosen. Now, this is the key part that I've tried to describe many, many times unsuccessfully on the Sports Card Strategy Show and or the Sports Card Strategy Show and Tell. But right here on the Overflow Show, I'm going to show you guys how to do this. This is what I talk about when I talk about separating your hands. So again, your hands are clean and dry. You're not worried about fingerprints. You've folded, you've creased, you've wiggled, and you've loosened the perforation as much as you possibly can. I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to move all this stuff off my desk. I'm going to throw it on the floor. There you go. Now we're in a situation where I've talked about this before, where you've heard me talk about spreading my hands apart. See what I'm doing? I'm just spreading my hands apart. And that, my friends, when you have folded, creased, wiggled, and loosened, to the extent that I have, it's like butter. I mean, it is like melted butter on your steak, just absolutely sizzling hot, ready to submit to PSA. Oh, my shoes would maybe call this part of the 1-2 shakedown. I'm calling it the fold. What did I say? I don't even remember. Fold, crease, loosen, and wiggle. and then tear. That's it right there. And then you would just do this. You would repeat the process. So on this Aaron Matson card, where Painter was kind of bending the card, again, you're just going to kind of put your finger to give it some resistance, and then just fold on the crease. Only fold on the crease. This is exactly what I did with my Wembys, and they got really good grades. So you can trust me on this one. And if you really want me to tear out your SI for Kids cards for you and submit them to PSA, I could be your guy. But I'm already providing quite a few services, so I'm not sure I want to add that one to the repertoire. This one's super miscut. I'll show you in a second. But when you fold, crease, wiggle, and then loosen, like you don't even have to worry about a tear at all. And then it's just up to PSA at that point. But see how miscut that is? Like that's going to get probably like a 4. Well, it could get like a 6 miscut or a 5 miscut, because the rest of it could grade well because I did such a good job tearing out the perforation with no issues. You could get lucky and have have it be one of the top cards, and then you don't have to worry about, you only tear it 3 times essentially there. All right, everybody. So that's Jason, my man, Jason Tenzer. Thank you for the question. Yo, thanks so much for checking out this clip. It was from the Overflow Show, where we answer unlimited questions from our premium members to help them build their sports card investment portfolio. You can become a premium member now. Just go to nooffseason.com and join a free 30-day trial of our premium membership and have your questions answered on the Overflow Show every Friday.